Okay, round 8 of the 2025 NRL season, Anzac Round, has been concluded. It's in the books and not without controversy. And the controversy starts in the first game of the weekend, the Broncos Bulldogs, and carries on right up to the Tigers Sharks, which is just concluded as we are recording this video in regards to the high shot crackdown, the Sin-Bins. I think if this was done in round 1, and this is how they're refereeing the whole season, I think we would have had less controversy around it. This is the second round where they've decided to crack down on head contact and high shots. They did it in round 6, but not to this extent. Now, the Broncos Bulldogs is the first game we're going to look at, and this is the game that I'm going to use as the example of, I think there was 4 sin-bins in total, 1 to the Broncos, 3 to the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs played nearly half the game down a man. They played 30 minutes in total with players in the bin. That has had an impact to some extent on the final score. The Broncos were the better side. There's no debating that. They win 42 points to 18. But this is where the NRL sets its stall out, and it carries on throughout the weekend. As I say, the Tigers Sharks is the last game of the weekend, 2 sin-bins. This is the only time I'm going to mention sin-bins and crackdown in this video. We'll discuss it in a separate video if it carries on into Magic Round. They did this in round 6 as well to some extent, but not to this extent. And it set the trend. Now, if they had started at round 1 or in the pre-season with this high shot sin-binning crackdown, like they did with the play the ball, then I think we can have no complaints as fans, because the NRL are then saying we're going to have consistency here. But what we've seen from game to game is inconsistency, and in the same games as well. We're also now seeing players of the opposition teams know that if they get clipped a little bit high, they're going to milk it. They're going to try and get the opposition player sin-binned, basically. So it's creating a situation we don't want to see, where players are milking the contact a little bit and playing to get opposition players sent in the sin-bin. And we're also seeing inconsistency from game to game and in-game in regards to head contact. So, like for example, the Sorensen shoulder charge. Okay, a shoulder charge is illegal. They've decided that's a sin-bin. Later on in that same Panthers Sea Eagles match, there was a shoulder charge by a Sea Eagles player, no sin-bin. So already we're seeing inconsistency in game as well. So, enough on that. Broncos 42, Bulldogs 18. Bulldogs winning start to the season ends. They are still top of the ladder. The Broncos, good response following a poor performance against the Warriors in Auckland in the last round. The Roosters 46, Dragons 18. Good response from the Roosters. They're now building some momentum a little bit. They're showing a bit of fight. They are still missing a lot of players through injury, and they've also been tweaking their lineup by dropping a couple of, like Chad Townsend and Dom Young have been dropped from the starting 17. And there's some talk about Dom Young maybe granted a release and allowed to be signed elsewhere. He may be on his way out of the Roosters. Dragons, that inconsistency from last season has started to come over to this season. They were building a bit of momentum, and this has just tempered that momentum somewhat. They were poor. The Dragons were not at the races in this clash. The Warriors getting a home game down in Christchurch against the Knights. Was it the best Warriors performance? I'm going to say no, but they did enough. The Knights their season's fast unravelling, and Adam O'Brien as head coach is under significant pressure at this point. Much more was expected of the Knights after winning the first 2 rounds. They haven't been anywhere close since then. The Warriors, they're looking like a dark horse for the top 4. And a lot of people said last season that was them coming back to earth. I think last season was a blip. I think they really are the real deal to be a very competitive side. They're showing a lot of grit, determination, with players out injured as well, key players out injured, and they've got a weakened lineup and they're winning games. The Knights, their season's falling apart. Their season's falling apart completely, and a lot of pressure's going to be on Adam O'Brien going forward. The Storm Rabbitohs, I mean, look, the Storm sellout. That's a good sign down in Melbourne. They're starting to sell out games now. Back-to-back games sold out, which is fantastic. It's the first time that's ever happened in Storm history at Amy Park. The Bunnies, their dreadful run in Melbourne continues. Dreadful run. The Storm were not at their best, but at the same time, neither were the Bunnies. But the Rabbitohs are starting to lose games now. How's that nice early start to the season run out of steam a little bit? Also, question marks, what's Latrell Mitchell's best position? I know the Bunnies have injuries, but what's Latrell Mitchell's best position? I'm hinting at left centre. He's not the best fullback. He's not the best half. I know people will say he's a superstar player, but he does. I think he's best suited at left centre, and I've been saying that since 2016. But that's my opinion. The Storm got some injuries. They have got some injuries. They weren't at their best in this game. They were tested, but they've got enough in the tank to get over the line. They're going to have some more players out injured, unfortunately, in the next round as well. Cowboys 50, Titans 18. The Titans had the Cowboys all over the place in the first half and were leading, and they've conceded 50 points. So make of that what you will. And again, Sin-Bins impacted this game as well. Sin-Bins did impact this game as well. There's going to be players suspended, I think, out of every game this weekend. There's a lot of players on report. There's been a lot of Sin-Bins. But the Cowboys scoring 50, they're starting to get their season up and running. After losing the first 3 rounds to start the season, they've won 4 in a row, and they've had a bye in there. So the Cowboys, 2015, they started the season quite similar, out of sorts, and a slow start to the season, and then they went on to win the grand final. They're starting to build some momentum, and they're looking really good. And in the first half, they were struggling. Their backs were against the wall. They weren't clicking. They were under pressure. And then they responded, and then they just steamrolled the Titans. They absolutely steamrolled them. Yes, Sin-Bins will help with that. But if this is how the NRL is going to start disciplining players, you've got to adjust. And the Cowboys just had fun in the second half. That has got to be a message to the rest of the competition. The Cowboys, when they start clicking, they can score points, and score points at a fair click. The Panthers Sea Eagles. The Panthers are the only home team to lose this weekend. They are also bottom of the NRL ladder. Who would have had money on that to start the season? That the Bulldogs would be top and the Panthers would be bottom. You would be able to retire with those odds. It's finished 26 points to 10 to the Sea Eagles. This is the one with the shoulder charge controversy. So Sorensen gets done for a shoulder charge early on, gets sin-binned. I forget who the Sea Eagles player was, but there is a shoulder charge. It is put on as a penalty. It is no sin bin. So this is where there's further controversy in regards to the discipline of players and what is a sin bin and what isn't. But the Sea Eagles were the better side. The Panthers, it's a difficult one for them because there were moments where they were clicking in attack and they were playing well, and then there were moments where all over the place, absolutely all over the place. They've got a lot of injuries. Yes, there are injuries with the Panthers lineup. There are players out suspended in the Panthers lineup, but the systems haven't changed. But the defence is not as good, and that's putting pressure on the attack. And yeah, they're on the back foot, and they're going to be missing some players in Magic Round. Now, I don't know where the Panthers go from here. I think they need the bye. They desperately need the bye as a reset. They are in a lot of trouble. Their season's fast unravelling. The Sea Eagles have been off the boil as well, but they get Tommy Trbojevic back and they win. So that Tommy Trbojevic does have an impact on the game. Didn't have his best game. I don't think he's fully fit. I think he's struggling with both his knees at the moment, left and right. He did look a little bit cautious taking steps. But the Sea Eagles, that's the first win for the Sea Eagles since Cherry Evans announced he was leaving the club at the end of the season. So that's a positive for the Sea Eagles. The Raiders Dolphins, I only caught a little bit of this game early hours this morning my time. But the Raiders, they're another dark horse for the Premiership in my opinion. They're winning well. They've only lost a couple of games so far this season. They're really, a lot of people wrote the Raiders off to start the season, saying they're going to be wooden spoonists, they're going to be no good, too young a team, you can't win with kids. The Raiders have been putting in some really impressive performances, as have the Dolphins. So just because the Dolphins have lost a game is not the end of the world for them. You're going to lose games. Everyone's beating everyone this season, but the Raiders are putting together a really good season so far, and defensively they're a lot better than in previous seasons where they've either been in the top 8 or around the top 8. They've tightened up defensively. They look a lot fitter. I think by getting younger they've got quicker, which was another issue. They were ageing a little bit in certain positions. Dolphins, they've had a mixed start to the season, but this is, I think, a bit of a reality check for the Dolphins a little bit. Not the end of the world. They had put together some good form recently, and they were building some momentum, including beating the Storm as well. in the manner they did. But a bit of a reality check for the Dolphins. Now, the Tigers Sharks. This was a scrappy game at Leichhardt. The weather's had an impact with a very gusty, swirling breeze. Sin-Bins impact this game as well. It goes to Golden Point. There are many drop goal attempts, field goal attempts, including in regulation. Nico Hines has hit the post with one. It comes down to a penalty for an illegal steal. But I will say this, there has been sin-binnings in this game as well. And last week, those weren't sin-bins, they were just penalties for incidental high contact. I don't know whether they're getting this light, moderate and severe force. I can get the severe force if there's just no control and it's just the player's targeting the head deliberately with a shoulder or a swinging arm. But the Tigers, Sharks ends the weekend, much like the Broncos, Bulldogs start the weekend with sin-bins. And they did have an impact on the flow of the game and the momentum of the game, because when the Sharks go down a player, the Tigers take advantage. When the Tigers go down a player, the Sharks take advantage, hence why it went to Golden Point. So the sin-binnings have had an impact on this game, much like the breeze as well, going from left to right. And while it was an entertaining game for the neutral, because either side could have won it and both sides were fluffing their lines, it's a good win for the Tigers considering the Lockie Galvin situation and their defeat to the Eels last week. It's a good response. They bring Galvin back into the side. He has a mixed game, but he has a contributing factor to the game. The Sharks, much like some other teams, they're a little bit inconsistent, but as this proves this season, anyone can beat anyone. And the fact that the Panthers are bottom and the Bulldogs are top, who would have had that on their betting odds at the start of the season if you were to go down a betting shop? The Eels had the bye this week, which is another reason why the Panthers are bottom, because the Eels get that bye, the 2 points for the bye. The Panthers really desperately need a bye to come their way. They desperately need just something so they can have a reset and a review of what's going on, because their confidence is really low. They're low defensively in confidence. When their attack clicks, it looks really good, but defensively, the confidence is a little bit shaken at the moment. But overall, controversial round 8, and I'll pay attention to the comments section, but I think if Magic Round is as controversial in regards to the sin-bins, then we're going to have to do a video on the high shot crackdown and why this wasn't brought in the pre-season and from round 1 onwards, so there is consistency. The play the ball crackdown, they're still pinging players for incorrect play the balls. And that is a directive that the NRL has given to referees. They were cracking down on that in the pre-season, and they've carried on being consistent in that area throughout this season. We know that they are looking at that as an infringement for this season with added focus. This high shot crackdown came in round 6. Wasn't really cracked on in round 7, and they brought it back in round 8, and they've been inconsistent with it. And it is frustrating because the Bunker's going back maybe a set or 2 sets prior to find a high shot to sin-bin a player, which the on-field officials have missed. So it is infuriating. Some of these sin-bins, they're not sin-bins. They're not. And the Super League found this as well in recent seasons, and coaches and players basically were like, what's the RFL and the Super League doing? And they kicked off in a similar crackdown where it didn't go down very well. I understand player protection and lowering the tackle height and getting better tackle technique, but in some of these situations, if the player has the perfect tackle technique, he's knocking himself out or causing himself an injury because he's in a bad position. So I don't know what the NRL want to do, want the players to do, and it's created controversy. And when you've got high-profile ex-players, members of the media calling this farcical, the NRL's got to have a think if they've got this right or got this wrong. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on round 8 Anzac Round in the comments section below, and we'll have more content for you all very, very soon.